another episode of Roll or Die. Today we have for you one of the newest black belts on the block. He just got his black belt 2 or 3 days ago from by way of Perkins Jiu-Jitsu. My old wrestling teammate, Trent Thiessens. Thanks for joining us.
Thiessens.
Thank you for having me. Yep, Thiessens. Yep.
Cool. I think
Also known as you're known as Mr. T to your students.
Yes,
is that right?
Yeah, I'm a teacher, so at school they call me Mr. T because pretty much if I write my name, no one pronounces it correctly, and if I say my name, no one spells it correctly. So we just stick with T.
And how do you guys saying, "Don't wreck my band, fool"? Are you any good at that?
Well, none of the kids actually understand that. Yeah, like there was a while back where they only knew him from the Snickers ad where he's like, "Get some nuts," but then none of them know about the whole pity the fool generation and all that sort of stuff.
Oh no! So you can't pity the fool,
generation
man. That is a shame, man. I also see you got a guitar.
If I dropped it, it'd just go straight over heads.
Yeah. I see you got a guitar in the background too, bro. It's
hobbyist.
Yeah, better than me at it, I hope. You know.
I don't know.
I'm missing out here. I don't have one in the background, so yeah. You play a bit, don't you, Trent?
I dabble with it. I wouldn't say I'm any good. I can play a bunch of chords and together, and that's about it. But yeah.
You know, actually, a funny story about me. I know this is about you, this podcast, man. But you know, a funny story about me is like I do play quite a lot of guitar, and I love taking it camping or whatever. My daughter's a really great musician now. But the funny thing about me is I only pull out my guitar and play it when I'm falling in love or breaking up. It's like it's my time for music. So all my songs are really release, and they're only one on the other. So I had to purposely.
Is that what's been sitting there for the last couple of years now?
That's right.
Just blowing the dust off it.
Yeah, that's right.
So we'll start at the end, and then we'll work backwards. So you've just got your black belt, like you're brand new. How's it feel?
Well, it's pretty good. Obviously, I may have gotten it earlier, but obviously COVID comes along and takes about 2 years out of it from there. But I don't know if I would have or not. But yeah, that was good. And then it feels not too much different to having a brown belt. Just it looks better than brown. But yeah, a little bit of imposter syndrome sits in there, and a little bit of pride sits in there, and it's a whole bunch of different feelings on that one, really. But yeah.
What's the black belt?
I haven't had a chance to actually roll with it yet, though.
What's the speech writing exercise like? I lie in bed. I'm only purple belt. Going when I'm black belt, am I going to say this? No, I think I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to say this. Like, have you been bouncing with your black belt speech for a long time?
I pretty much knew that I was going to overall just thank my dad because he was the one who got me into wrestling, which is where I started. And then obviously through the years, taking me to competitions and always asking me about stuff like that. So massive influence on just any sort of martial arts from the get-go. So I did actually say during my thank you speech about that was his black belt as well as mine. So I stick true to that. It is very much his black belt because he has a major role to do with everything. So yeah,
that's awesome.
But that was pretty much the main thing that when I would lie in bed at 2 a.m. thinking about what I would say, I knew I would say that sort of stuff. So
yeah, awesome. I see.
So tell us about that. How did you get started? How did he kind of influence you along the way?
So I did like Taekwondo as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old or something like that. And that was just what it was. And then stopped doing that just as kids do. And then when I was in year 7 in 1998, I think it was, just had a day at school where one of the other boys was annoying me. And I'm not going to say it was bullying because it was just a once-off sort of thing, but it obviously got me feeling down and stuff. And Dad came in, and Dad used to wrestle back when he was younger. So he said, "Do you want to try out wrestling?" And obviously, like most teenage boys, I quite liked the WWF or WWE back then. So I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. I knew the difference between, the professional style and freestyle wrestling. So yeah, he found a club and we went there. So we drove out to Footscray and trained out there for a bit. And then eventually he ended up opening up his own club in Roeville. So we would train there. So he became my coach as well. And then, yeah, through the years, obviously met some people and through that, met some other guys. So Brian Hurley, who became my first official sort of jiu-jitsu coach. So yeah, got through jiu-jitsu through my wrestling contacts basically, and yeah.
Wow. So your
What was that
dad,
like when you were like a 12 or 13-year-old wrestling?
For wrestling, I was a skinny kid. I was like I was like one of the smallest kids in year 7 at that stage. So it was good to have a little bit of grounding back then. It wasn't like wrestling's never been huge in Australia. It's I thought obviously with the rise of the UFC and obviously how BJJ is like blitzed out of nowhere, I thought maybe wrestling might kickstart a bit more, but it hasn't really. There's obviously quite a lot of talent within Australia, but for the amount of people who do wrestling, it hasn't really grown from there. But yeah, so it was still small back then. So we would go to whatever competitions we could find. And then, yeah, it was very sort of, I don't know how you describe it, sort of not unorganized, but just a very roots sort of sport where, you know, you go and compete and you'd know everybody who was there and all that sort of stuff. And it's always the same people who were out there kicking everybody else's ass. And yeah, it was good fun.
how did your dad get into wrestling? Is he American or something, or was he? You know,
No, he did it through the YMCA's. I'm not exactly certain how he got into it. It was probably just one of the sports that was around because he's a immigrant from the Netherlands originally.
Wow.
So there's really no cultural aspect of wrestling that came from that. But I guess he just found it at the one of the YMCA's there and was going through that. And then when we actually went to the first club that I started training at, he actually met up with one of the guys he used to train with there. So that's how small of a community it really was, that after 30 odd years away from the mat or something like that, well, probably 20 odd years or something, but he was still able to find somebody else who was still going at it. So
yeah, amazing, man.
And why do you think it is that wrestling hasn't taken off despite the UFC being so popular?
it's too bloody hard.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a couple of things, like the rules can be kind of confusing with it. And really it's, I mean, it could be a whole bunch of different things really. I mean, I would say that wrestling is the hardest sport that I've ever done. Obviously there's things that are hard about jiu-jitsu in terms of like physical strength and technique and training and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, anyone who's done a 10-minute roll of jiu-jitsu and anyone who's done a 2-minute round of wrestling will know that after 2 minutes of wrestling, you are gassed. Like it is hard work to do that. So I think it's a bit of that. And it might even be related to that sort of martial arts aspect even. Jiu-jitsu has that more sort of framework of that martial art, self-defense style thing for those people who are interested in that. Whereas wrestling is really just a grappling sport, even though you could obviously use that quite efficiently in some self-defense sort of situations. So
do you think the attire is a little bit unsexy as well? Like, do you think they could kind of like, or maybe it's too sexy? I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, but I mean, you've seen some of the things that people rock up in no-gi, and you see Craig Jones running around in bloody leopard skin booty shorts. So.
Oh my God, yeah. It's really, I don't like looking up a man's shorts, I'll tell you that. And there's like this open short kind of thing going on in BJJ right now, which is freaking me out a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the attire is definitely something about it as well, but I don't know. It's just I think that's probably one of those questions where if you knew the answer to that one, then that's the $1 million question for why wrestling hasn't really taken off. But yeah, even worldwide, I don't think wrestling even has the amount of people that jiu-jitsu has within, you know, an ancient sport like wrestling, and then jiu-jitsu, which is I don't know, 30 years old now. So
yeah,
it's just boomed out of nowhere. So I don't know what that is.
Like if it was made part of the jiu-jitsu curriculum, I'd do it. You know what I mean? Like if they said, oh, every second Wednesday in your no-gi, we're going to wrestle, and I wouldn't even remember, you know, I'd just rock up at my class. And
Yeah.
say, oh, it's wrestling time. That's right. Okay, here we go. This is going to hurt. I know it's going to hurt, but I would do it. You know,
I'm biased, and I'm biased as anything, but I think it should be part of the jiu-jitsu curriculum. Like,
yeah,
everyone's like, well, eventually all fights hit the ground. It's like, but all fights start standing up. So
Yeah,
if you don't know
absolutely.
how to control yourself standing up, then you're screwed from the get-go.
100%, man.
Yeah, I didn't mention in the introduction, but Trent is actually also my old wrestling teammate, and he pretty much coached me along with Chris Shen for several years, or attempted to coach me. Very, very patient, very, very tried very hard to help me with my wrestling. He did to some degree, but yeah, I got to admit, I'm still pretty hopeless. But he also takes classes. He teach Wednesday nights wrestling at Perkins. Is that right?
Yeah, Perkins Jiu-Jitsu running out of Hammer's gym in Nunawading. So feel free to come on down and join in if you can.
Yeah, awesome. Is there like a wrestling open mat people can try? Is there that sort of thing going on, or is it?
Look, I've been out of the proper wrestling scene for a little bit. I sort of just coach it now. I haven't really kept up with how everything's working, but I know they used to have a lot of like we'd call them match bouts, which is basically just rock up and then you two are about the same weight. Want to have a match? Cool, off you go. So I was very, very casual sort of competition sort of things. I'm not sure if they run them as much anymore, but I mean, yeah, I mean, just go to open mat and wrestle.
Yeah.
What would you say for a jiu-jitsu practitioner would be the two best takedowns that they should learn, or the two things that they should have in their game, if there are any? Or what do you think?
I would say that you probably should have a good snap down. So grabbing the head, getting that down, because that sets you up nicely for just even standing guillotines. I mean, finish the match without even hitting the ground, even better. But being able to do that snap down obviously also causes your opponent to try and stand up again, and then having a good single leg or double leg. I mean, shoot for a double if you only get a single, sweet, but if you can get that good shot in, so being able to use that head movement, getting the head out of the way, shoot through for the legs, or shoot through the legs and fake that, and then hit for the head. They're two good things. And then obviously everyone needs to know an arm drag. So yeah, I think a good snap down and a good shot will start off something pretty well.
I'm no pro at this, right? But I love a good arm drag if I can get it. Like I can get it on white belts, for example, no problem. I find that like, as I'm facing more and more kind of experienced competitors, arm drags and things, I just can't get that timing, right? I feel like I'm dealing with a brick wall. And same with snap down even. Like they're ahead of me. They're the same age, they're the same weight. I'm competing against them, but I end up in this kind of
stalemate
that looks like shit and nothing good is happening. What do you do in these situations?
I usually tell like the guys that I'm coaching and stuff that your arm drags, like if you thought about like in striking, then arm drag's like a jab. You're not going to win the match with that, but you're going to set stuff up with that. So if you get the arm drag, sweet, that works perfectly. But sometimes I go for the arm drag and my partner's going to pull that arm away, and that sets you up for a shot. Or you can arm drag from one arm, they bring the other arm in, you switch to the other arm. So with the snap downs and stuff like that, you hit for a snap down. If you get it, beautiful. But I mean, once you go up against somebody who's experienced, they're going to start defending, and it's using that defense to get a reaction out of them to shoot in for something or to go up and down. And so I treat the arm drag like a jab, basically.
Just changed my life, man. Treating it like a jab is the whole perspective for me. Thank you, man. That's perfect coaching right there. Thank you, man.
I think that maybe part of the problem with the wrestling for jiu-jitsu is that there's just, I know certainly in our club, there's so many people that it's really hard to start standing. So like, have you got any advice for people that aren't, that are in a club where they don't do a lot from standing? Like, what can they do for their wrestling?
I mean, it's the same thing as like, how do I improve in jiu-jitsu? You just got to do more jiu-jitsu, really. The main things with like wrestling is just being able to understand, and I suppose it's probably the same with jiu-jitsu, is like being able to understand where your posture is, knowing where your base is, all that sort of stuff. So if you're starting your wrestling and you're leaning in too far forward, then obviously your center of balance is off and all that sort of stuff. So you're easy to get taken down from there. Whereas if you're not protecting your legs enough, you're going to get shot on. If you're not hunching your shoulders up and keeping your neck tight, then you're going to get snapped down. And if you're not keeping up with what the other person's doing, then obviously eventually somebody's going to beat you. And that's like, as I say, like if you treat grappling like striking, you're going to throw your jab out, then you're going to throw your cross, then you're going to throw your hook. So I'm going to throw that arm drag, and then I'm going to shoot for the legs, then I'm going to shoot the hit for the snap down or something like that. And eventually something's going to stick. So I think to get better at wrestling, obviously you have to do it. But the main things, if you're going to try it out in just like an open mat sort of thing, it's just focusing on posture, footwork, and just really fundamental stuff that you would consider for jiu-jitsu as well.
Yeah, man, that's great. I also like another thing that blows me away about what, because you can always tell a wrestler, their shots just look so they wrestlers move fast. You know, somehow they move. They don't seem to telegraph. They shoot fast. Is that like a conditioning thing, or is that a technique thing? Because I don't have any of that. Like I think I don't understand. It's like their knees are made of something else that is not normal, because they can kind of bounce off their knees on the floor and stuff. It's like, how are these people doing it? And, you know, they fight so often. Like, I know that, like in the States, you'll wrestle like every weekend, you will compete, you know, like, so how are these people holding their bodies together? Like, what's the secret sauce there?
It's probably the same thing as, like, for most people in most sports, you find ways of being lazy at something, or probably better word is probably efficient at something. You know, like if I went to go play a game of AFL or something like that, my hammies would be just absolutely torn to shreds. But somebody who does it week in, week out, they obviously know how to do it efficiently, and how to do it in a manner where it just looks so easy that you go, or we go back to the guitar example, you know, and you go watch somebody play guitar and you're like, oh, I can play that. You pick it up and then you go, I can't play that. Like it's the idea of that expert who makes things look easy because they're just efficient at it. So it's working it from that fundamental stage, figuring out what I can do, what I can be lazy at, I like to call it, but efficient is probably the better word. And then you can figure out how to make it look seamless. And then half the time, like any good no-gi apparel, it's just making it look good.
Bring your own style to it. It blows me away, like the energy levels of wrestlers, man. It really does.
Yeah, I mean, you look at like those high-level wrestlers, and they're just cardio for days, and their power. But then you see the workouts that they do as well. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm anywhere near that sort of stage. I'm nowhere near that stage. So, I rely a lot on efficiency rather than power and speed.
Cool.
And speaking about high level, do you have any insights into the upcoming Commonwealth Games for the wrestling? Any Australians to watch out for? Any standouts? I
mean, we've got quite a few people in there. I'm not exactly certain who we sent over, but I know that like Jaden Lawrence is probably one of our most experienced wrestlers who will be over there. And I've done a seminar back with him, or pre-COVID era. And I just know that like we were doing leg lace, which is basically where you tangle up the legs to get the roll so you can get some points and stuff. And he did one on me, and I guarantee it felt like shin was going through my other leg. It was just so absolutely tight. So yeah, he'd be definitely, with the experience and with the strength that he's got behind him, he'd be a very good chance in there. So, but I mean, Australia is one of those ones where we don't have a whole huge amount of competition pool to select from. Those people who are going are obviously top of the field in Australia. But worldwide, we haven't always fared so well, just because it's just not one of those national sort of competitions that we've got. But I mean, all the best of them, they're out there and they're kicking goals. So hopefully they can bring back some sort of gold or silver or bronze or whatever.
Yeah, I find it really amazing, actually, just watching the UFC. Like we've got two, well, I claim Adesanya, you know, Australia, New Zealand, they're all down this kind of end of the world. Right. So we've got two champions in the UFC right now. Volkanovski, Adesanya. Like I do not know how they're finding enough talent around the way down here to be as good as they are. You know what I mean? And I'm wondering, Yeah. What about wrestling? Does wrestling have a chance to like create some freaks of nature like those guys?
Well, I know when Bobby Knuckles had the belt, he wanted to try out for the Commonwealth wrestling team as well, but because he had commitments with the UFC, they wouldn't let him go for it. I know he's Robert Whittaker's competed at the nationals for Australia and stuff like that, and he's obviously performed well. I think he won it or might have come silver, because obviously he's just a talented wrestler, grappler, sportsman. But yeah, he wasn't able to go for the Commonwealth Games because of commitments with the UFC. They just said, nah, we're not risking that. So that was unfortunate. It would have been cool to see how he would have done that. That might have actually helped out wrestling as well.
That's so true, man. Absolutely. It just takes something like that, doesn't it, to really kind of put the world's eye on it. Yeah.
And Trent, you mentioned earlier about your transition into jiu-jitsu from wrestling. Like, how was that for you? I know a lot of wrestlers have a hard time at the initial part of jiu-jitsu, especially with the concept of being on your back. How did you find that?
I loved it because I mean, I came in, I started competing jiu-jitsu at a white belt. I would have been low 20s, so I was 22, 24, somewhere around that. I was in good shape. I had a good wrestling background. So I came along and was quite solid as a white belt. And it was great. I mean, for the first time, I was like, I can lie on my back. This is nice.
Like,
and then
lazy wrestling.
I would just use
that laziness.
Lazy wrestling. Yeah. I didn't have to worry about scrambling to try and get onto my belly and then get my ass kicked while I was face down. So yeah, it was heaps of fun with that. And then it was just pretty much, how do I do submissions from here? So that was the main part of it. And then, I quite enjoyed it, but I never developed a guard game out of it.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Like, you probably, like, I imagine this bites you on the ass in some way at some point. Like, you come in here and you do well in comps as a white belt, for example, I'm imagining, because you can wrestle. And then, so then you go along and maybe you get your blue belt, and then all this, and then, I don't know, like, was there a crossover point where like you got to be a bit too lazy because you had such good wrestling? And then you had to
a little bit of that. Like, obviously, once I got to, I mean, even within the white belt division, there were guys out there who were just really good. And I wouldn't win all competitions. I quite often came away with a silver medal because there was always that one other person who was just really good. And obviously deserved the gold. And then once you got to blue belt, obviously that expands even more. There's a lot more people who are good. There's some people who are pretty much purple belt, all that sort of stuff. So it's a whole different plethora of a game there. Plus, at the same time, like, once I got to blue belt, that's when life started kicking in. I was working full time, couldn't commit to training as much as often, and then it just all went downhill from purple and brown as well. Like, can't train as often, so got heavier, got lazier, all those sorts of things.
You mean more efficient? Sorry, you got more efficient.
Trent, tell us about when you went over to Adelaide with some of your teammates and did a comp over there and got pretty hungover, and then next day did the competition and yet managed to take out every division.
Wow.
How did you do that?
That wasn't me that managed to do that one. We drove over. So there was myself, Richard Garrett, Jules Gonzalez, and somebody else in the car with us. I can't remember who. But there was 5 of us that decided to drive along in my car. And then there was a busload of some of the females who were driving along as well. So we were sort of racing each other as we went across there. And then eventually we got to our place that we're staying, and why not? Let's buy a bottle of Canadian Club or Jim Beam or whatever it was. So I finished that off that night, and then rocked up the next day thinking, it wasn't the best idea. My first match, I was competing at blue belt, I think, at this point. First match I came into, and I can't even remember how it started going, but basically it got to the point where I think I locked on, like I got to side control and then I got to an armbar and yeah, finished off the armbar, all good. But at the whole time of squeezing and holding on, like I was that close to dirtying my trousers. I was waiting to get off the mat, and the ref's like taking his time. He's told the other guy to tie his belt, and I'm just like, he's raised my hand, cool, shook his hand, and then ran off. And all my teammates are like, "Oh, good job!" I'm like, "Get out of the way." Had to go to the toilet pretty bad after that one. So yeah, I think I won 2 or 3 matches in that one. Then didn't make it to the finals of that, and I think the same sort of thing happened to in the Open for that one as well. But yeah, that was not the brightest of ideas.
Well, at least you didn't actually complete that that dirtying action, because
it was close. It was close.
That's when you don't want a white gi, hey?
Yeah.
No.
It would have been a very different podcast if this story had come up.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. I'm pretty sure people actually know my name if I was the guy who crapped on the mat. So
the famous Trent Thiessens here, guys. The guy who.
Yep.
Yeah.
You're the mat crapper. Yeah. The unofficial brown belt. Yeah.
But tell us a bit more about Jody and Dion. I mean, I've obviously known them for almost as long as what you have, and they are just amazing people, beautiful family environment, beautiful club, and you've been a member there obviously for many years. Tell us a bit more about them, about their club.
Yeah, because I was training with Brian, and then he was going to close down where he was coaching because of family commitments. He was about to have his first child. But luckily, Dion and Jody were opening up their club. So pretty much it was just like going from one to the other. So I started with them when they first opened up out in Maroondah. And have been with them ever since there. Obviously, they're now pretty much lifelong friends. We get along like a house on fire because we both like, music, the same metal music and all that sort of stuff. We've been to gigs and all that sort of stuff together, catch up for a beer every now and then. But I mean, they're the reason, like I even travel 45 minutes just to go train with them, purely because I enjoy what they bring to jiu-jitsu and all that sort of stuff. Because I mean, they've gone from places where they had a warehouse that they were coaching out of, and they were pretty much living there as well, with their family, 4 daughters, all that sort of stuff, just putting in the effort. You could tell they really just wanted to coach jiu-jitsu. So they're working whilst living at this place and coaching people 7 days a week sort of thing. So yeah, even though Dion's the loudmouth out the front and talking crap with his stuff, I mean, still a legitimate jiu-jitsu guy and really good coach and all that sort of stuff. Jody sits there and she's the brains of the whole operation. And yeah, they're both just lovely people. So I mean, I travel 45 minutes, so it's an hour and a half round trip, but it's worth it. So
and for people who are like in that area, right, and want to, try out the club or do something like that, like how would you describe the culture of that club?
Pretty easygoing. We've got because it's Hammer's gym in Nunawading. Perkins Jiu-Jitsu runs out of that at the moment. Obviously, there's Muay Thai is the biggest focus there because it's Hammer Castanini. So most people would have heard the name within that martial arts community of that sort of thing. So it's a big Muay Thai sort of gym. And then we've got our own matted area for jiu-jitsu. So we get a lot of guys doing crossover stuff like that. We have built up towards a MMA class in that as well. So we've had a couple of guys who have competed amateur MMA and have had successes in that. And then obviously I coach wrestling there once a week and all that sort of stuff. So it's pretty much a good place if you want to try a diverse bunch of things there. And I mean, it's not a heavily competition focused thing, but we always encourage people to go to competitions. And it's just a really good place in terms of like it doesn't have to be this way. This is how you train. This is how you do this movement. It's open to, these are the fundamentals. So experiment with it and work
Yeah.
your game. Have fun with it. Just lots of fun.
Sounds awesome.
And
good
Trent,
fun.
you're a primary school PE teacher.
Yep.
Do your students respect your jiu-jitsu and wrestling, or no, none at all?
They pretty much do the whole thing of like, what's jiu-jitsu? Is that like karate? And so I just don't bother. They know I do it. And I have once tried to teach it before, but it's really hard to teach a whole bunch of kids who, aren't quite getting it. And I don't want to ruin something I love by getting angry at kids who don't understand it. So it's fine teaching kids at a club.
It's no different to any other workplace then. They're doing the karate hands and stuff like that as well. Even though
yeah.
They do the karate.
I mean, there's a couple of kids who do actually do jiu-jitsu at school, so they're like, oh, that's cool. But most of them just think, oh, it's karate or it's taekwondo. So I just try and tell them, but
Do they respect Mr. T's guitar playing ability?
Yeah. I think they respect my guitar ability a bit more than my jiu-jitsu ability, but I haven't had to choke out a kid yet. So
watch me play, kids, or I'll choke you out.
It's a little bit that way.
And just a bit off topic here, but then how was it during the lockdowns for you doing online learning as a teacher? Like, because hats off. Yeah, I don't know how you guys did that for pretty much 2 years in Victoria anyway.
Yeah, it was different. Obviously, the quality of work that was happening wasn't as good, but it was impossible to follow that through. The thing I loved about it was the travel time was just gone. So I saved a whole working day worth of travel by the end of the week. So, during my lunch break, I was getting dinner ready, and then I didn't have to travel because, again, I travel about 45 minutes to get to work. So that's an hour and a half each day, 7.5 hours by the end of the week sort of gone. So it's a whole working day that I saved in terms of travel time. So I loved it in that respect. But yeah, in terms of the quality of work coming out of it, I mean, we did as best as we could.
Was PE online? Like, how did you even do that?
Oh, PE was hell. I ended up helping out a lot more in classroom sort of situations and just giving PE work because not every kid has every piece of equipment sitting at home. So I'd run like a cross country. So I'd tell kids to measure, like with their smartwatches and stuff, how far they've gone for a run, and we'd add them up. And then at the end of the week, we'd have like a marathon sort of thing, who's run the furthest, all that sort of stuff. But I mean, it was basically, here's the work, do it if you can. If not, then just do something active. That's good enough. But yeah.
Have you found much kind of, how's it been with the kids at school now, like coming back after the pandemic?
Yeah, they love coming back. I mean, a lot of them, especially the senior students, because I teach in grade 5, 6 as well in the classroom, they recognize that they love being with their mates. Very few of them enjoyed the online side more. Some of them did, but yeah, most of them just love just being able to be back at school and stuff. And my school's got a great community there, so it's great for them. They just like being back there. So
for sure. No, it was very hard being online. I can attest to that with my kids. That's for sure. I don't know about you, Anton. It was not good.
Certainly didn't enjoy it at all. I guess we're almost done, but I'd be interested in, because you are a teacher. So in theory, you're a person who's on a quest for delivering knowledge to people, or, like you try and help people grow and learn, right? That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of your mission. Do you think that the wrestling and the jiu-jitsu, like, is there any crossover in, like, how do they help your life in either educating the students or in your own life? Do you see any connections, or is there no connection at all? Is it just your escape? Like, well, are they connected? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously my teaching helps out with my coaching because it gives me ideas on how I should stable a class and all that sort of stuff. But to switch it back the other way, how does wrestling help with teaching and all that sort of stuff? I mean, I think wrestling and jiu-jitsu have mostly just helped out with just having confidence. I mean, coming from being that really small kid in year 7, who was like the smallest kid in year 7 sort of thing, and just growing up, being able to just know that, like, if it came into a bad situation, I hope I could handle myself, and I'm pretty confident I could handle myself. I haven't been there. I don't want to be there, but it brings that sort of confidence, and just that sort of stuff. And then, I mean, that transfers to everything. If you've got confidence and being able to just stand there, then that's pretty much what you have to do with teaching. You just got to stand there and just say, hey, this is what I got to offer. It's your chance to take it. So
that makes total sense, man. Thank you for sharing that. I
Awesome.
totally agree. That's awesome.
And
Awesome.
any final parting words, any words of wisdom before we wind it up for our listeners?
Look,
Just,
learn to
now
wrestle.
that you've got your new black belt, like any advice you can offer, particularly to people that are struggling on the mats?
Look, I said it when I got my black belt. The only reason I got my black belt is because I kept showing up. So, I mean, everyone said that, it's cliche, but it's true. Keep showing up, keep trying. You're going to be crap at it, and then eventually you get less crap, and then you'll realize that you are really crap at other things. And then, as I said, I realized I was really crap at guard, so I just completely forgot about guard and just went on to other things. So
I love it.
yeah,
So accept being crap and you'll end up with a black belt. That's
Yep.
I think that's powerful. Awesome,
He's
man.
not
black
crap
belt's
at
just somebody
guard.
who
I
just got less crap.
You're very modest, Trent. It's
Yeah.
not the
Yeah, you're
case at
great.
all. And awesome coach, awesome wrestler. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. We'll probably have
appreciate it.
this out in a week or two. If you could share it on your social media, that would be awesome for us. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you back on the mats again soon.
Yes, thank you for having me, and yeah, good fun chat.
Cheers,
Okay.
brother. Rock on,
Take
rock
care.
star. Catch you later.
Excellent.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye.